Shalom, Israel. It's that time again. The ISUPK, under Commanding General Yahana, presents the Lord's 57th Annual Passover. That's right, the Lord's 57th Annual Passover, April 4th, 2026, in Houston, Texas. All Black, Hispanics, and Native Americans are commanded to observe the Lord's Passover. This will be the biggest Passover to date. You do not want to miss this. Fresh lamb, fresh wine, and bitter herbs as commanded by the Most High. Only $200 per person, ages 17 and up. The biggest event of the year. There is only one Passover, and it's under Commanding General Yahana. See you there, Israel. Shalom.
Nobody else there to compare to. Train for war, men of war, and warlike apparel. Prefer our leaders, can't get between us. Watch where you stepping.
Shalom, Yasha Allah. Yahweh Shem Yahushai Barakatah, Yahweh Shema Alatan Ba'Shem Yahushai. This is the ISUPK, started out of 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York, in 1969. We are under Commanding General Yahana. We come out here to teach the truth of the Bible for so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native American Indians, their real culture and identity according to the scriptures. It is, of course, our Friday Ancient Hebrew class, our Lashawan Kodash class, where we go in depth into the Lashawan Kodash, the ancient tongue, the holy tongue is what it means. And this is something that we hold forth in the UPK that you won't see in other so-called Israelite groups. You won't see this in religions, because this, you have to understand just how much of a weapon language is. So much so that language has been used to enslave us. Language is used to enslave us and to separate us and to divide us. You understand? If you learned English growing up, if you learned Spanish growing up, if you've learned any language other than what you're looking at right here in front of you, it is a dilution of an original language that belongs to you. So when the ISUPK, what we do is we come back and take back our language. This language is so spiritually holy that even the people in the land of Israel today will not use this language. As wicked as they are, and as much as they try to say that they are the Israelites, they won't even touch this language, because it is not something that they want to hold responsible for having used this language and then living the way that they are, in complete opposite of what the scripture says to do. You understand? That's why they don't use this. That's why fake Israelite schools won't use this. We dive headfirst into this. When it comes to the Lashawan Kodash, we understand in the UPK that it is it's a pinnacle part of our identity and our culture. In fact, you wouldn't be considered a Hebrew Israelite if you didn't take those first steps into learning the Hebrew. Now, am I saying that you need to be fluent? No, not in the captivity that we're in. But understand this. Much like how when we left the times of Egypt, when we left any captivity that we had been held under, it is an expectation for us to come back to our real language. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's not easy to do that, especially if you've lived 20, 30, 40 plus years of life speaking another language. It's easy to learn a language when you're young. And what's actually part of the scriptures we'll be going into today that's really going to hit home on what our discussion is going to be for the next few weeks within these Lashawan Kodash classes. Well, when you learn earlier when you're young, you can learn multiple languages. You could be bilingual or even trilingual in some cases. Some people know more than 2 languages. But when it comes to trying to learn that when you're older, it's actually much more difficult. Because you're so set in the language that you've been trained and you've used in the ins and outs of your day-to-day for so long, right? So one thing that I will say about the ancient Hebrew, though, what you're looking at is, of course, the scriptures, and we'll be going in and breaking these down and taking it word for word through these verses that we're going to start. Now, what I wanted to do is I wanted to get into Ecclesiastes chapter 12. Okay. But before I do, I need to preface it with a prequel series that is going to be Ecclesiastes 11, specifically starting at verse 7. There's a couple other verses that are relevant in this chapter, but these are the ones towards the end of this chapter from 7, I believe, through I think there's about 9 or 10 verses in this chapter, maybe a couple more, that lead into Ecclesiastes chapter 12, which is going to have a certain theme. But these being the words of, I believe, King Solomon, that are written in the book of Ecclesiastes, ultimately, that he speaks with a lot of wisdom and a lot of spiritual poet type speech. Okay. And so when you go into Ecclesiastes, especially when you read it in the Hebrew, it really opens up your mind to an understanding of what is being said. And it really, really hits home, you know what I'm saying, and relates to us as a people. We need to relate to the Bible more than we relate to drugs. We need to relate to, well, we shouldn't be relating to drugs at all. Some of us, of course, have to take medication, so there's an understanding in that. But what I'm saying is we need to relate to the scriptures and relate to our language more than anything else. It is a crucial part of us awakening out of our sleep. And so don't slack on those things. You understand? We practice the Hebrew as much as some of our brothers that come into the school, they don't know how to speak it. They start struggling through it. But as they continue to come to Sabbath service, as they come to the Lashawan Kodash class, which is the best place to learn and practice, that it starts to catch on. Before you know it, more words slowly start to be added to your vocabulary. And that's what these classes are designed to do. These classes are designed to give you a better understanding of how the language is translated and how it compares to English translations. And understand this. When this language was created, it wasn't very complicated. There's no vowels in this language. These are all consonants, even though they may look familiar to some words, like this looks like a capital A that's tipped over. This looks like an R that's reversed. This looks like the letter Y. It's pronounced wa. This looks like an L. This looks like an I. Some of them sound similar to what they look like. Okay. This looks like an O, but it's pronounced I. Those are not actually vowels. Those are consonants. And so when we go and we start practicing the Hebrew and getting an understanding of it, we are trying to be as accurate as we possibly can. But also keep in mind that the ancient Hebrew is very similar to what we do with any language that we've been forced to speak. We try to shorten it. We try to turn it into a form of slang or dialect that says more than what's necessary without saying too much. That's how our languages have always been. Most of the time, not always, but most of the time, other cultures try to expound on their words and say the same thing multiple ways, try to make it sound elegant and intelligent, when our language was designed to be straight and direct and to the point, and of course to have its own flair to it. So when we look at this language, understand that this looks like almost like you're looking at all capital letters. Well, they're all capital, they're all consonant. It's a very strong language. It's the kind of language that's designed so that it doesn't roll off the tongue smoothly. It's actually designed to be spoken very loud. Black and Hispanic and Native Americans are known to be very loud everywhere that we are. And in our speech and our laughter, we're the ones that are laughing loud at the movie theater that keep you from hearing the movie because we speak so loud just normally. That is in our spirit. That is in our original language. This language is usually shouted when we speak it during the prayers. You understand? It is quite normal for it to be like that because that's just like how we roll. We roll in all capital letters like Captain Mashak Mayam out of Isupk, I believe it's Washington. If you ever see him post anything on Facebook, it's in all caps. That's the spirit of the Most High because this language is like it's all caps. Okay? Let me see which marker I want to use today. I want to start breaking down some of these scriptures. And of course, we'll see how far we get. Yeah, this marker is not good. Can't use that one. Try this one. I had just bought a new set, so some of these should be good. So we got that one. Maybe we'll go with red. Let me see how red is looking. Red's looking all right. We might work with we'll go with green today. Okay. And so again, I'm not gonna leave this on the board and you not understand it. I'm gonna go word for word. We're gonna actually put translations right above so you can see them in English. Of course, this class is in English and in Hebrew. So we're going to break down word for word what is being said. Then we're going to understand what is being said. So before we, well, I guess it's best that we, well, you could literally take your Bible app or your Bible and go to Ecclesiastes chapter 11 and verse 7, and you could just read what it says. Matter of fact, we'll read it in English right now. Then what we'll do is we'll practice reading it in the Hebrew a couple times, okay? And then we'll translate it, okay? So that we can see it. Because I like reading the Hebrew on the screen without having all of the translation and all the scribble scrabble I got to put to help you understand it. So I like to read it purely as Hebrew. That way, those of you that are more adept when it comes to the Hebrew have the chance to practice reading it as well without a lot of clutter on the screen. Okay, so I like to do that, and then we dive in and start to really get to the meat of it. You know what I'm saying? So when we go to Ecclesiastes chapter 11, we jump down to verse 7. This is what we're about to translate. This is how it is written in the King James Bible. Just listen to this. Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 7 says, "Truly the light is sweet, and a pleasant thing it is for the eyes to behold the sun." Truly the light is sweet, and a pleasant thing it is for the eyes to behold the sun. That's what we just said. That's Ecclesiastes 11 and 7. Now we're going to read verse 8 since we got it here. It says, "But if a man live many years and rejoice in them all, yet let him remember the days of darkness, for they shall be many. All that cometh is vanity." Okay. Read that all through again. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verses 7 and 8. That's what you're looking at in Hebrew on the board right here. And we'll be breaking this down as we go. It says, "Truly the light is sweet, and a pleasant thing it is for the eyes to behold the sun. But if a man live many years and rejoice in them all, yet let him remember the days of darkness, for they shall be many. All that cometh is vanity." Has a kind of a darker tone to it. The scripture does not shy away from themes that involve depth and darkness and sadness. Most High created us to have and experience all these different emotions, whether it be happiness, anger, all these different things. And there's a time for all of them. He tells us that in the scriptures. It says a time for happiness, a time for mourning, a time for laughter, right? A time for peace, a time for war, a time for love, and a time for hate. There are times for them. And so everything is really balanced out. But he's also telling you in these scriptures some very, really, really deep things. This is King Solomon that wrote this. You understand? And so when King Solomon gave speeches with this in mind, and so these words were things that he echoed. You understand? And when you echo these types of words, that you've experienced things in life and have put things in a perspective that can relate to people but doesn't confuse them at the same time. It's almost like a parable because he's saying something real heavy, but you really got to dive into it to really appreciate what it is that he just said. Because I'm going to help you see it today. Today, my job is to make sure that you completely see how the scripture lines right up with what you got going on in your day-to-day life. And I'm going to show you. So, Ecclesiastes 11 and 7. Let's now read it in the Hebrew. We read it in the English, so we got that out the way. Now we're going to read it directly in the Hebrew before we go in and start translating. Okay? And roughly, it sounds like this. Wama thawak. Wama thawak. Ha a war. Ha a war. Wa tawab. Wa tawab. La yanyam. La yanyam. La ra'awath. La ra'awath. That's a good way to pronounce it. La ra'awath. Ath. Ha shamash. Ha shamash. Okay. Kaya. Kaya. Ama. Ama. Shanayam. Shanayam. Ha Rabbah. Okay. Ha Rabbah. Ha-ka-ya. It's like it. Ya-ka-ya. Ya-ka-ya. We got ha-adam. Ha-adam. Ba-kalam. Notice how it rhymes very easy. Hebrew naturally has a lot of double and even triple entendres because they're all consonants technically. And so a lot of these words, and when you go down the alphabet, they all pretty much have a ah sound at the end. Not a, not any other kind of, most of them. Aba, ga, da, ha, wa, za, ka, ta, ya, ka, la, ma, na, sa, I, pa, za, kwa, ra, sha, tha. They all rhyme. All these different characters, like every character, almost every character, except maybe I. There's like very few exceptions, if any, right? They all rhyme with each other, and so you do you understand? Like, first of all, before we start getting into reading it anymore, I need y'all to see this. Okay, I need you to pay good close attention to this and understand. If our language, if our original language and our alphabet is basically 95, 98% rhymes with itself, you have to understand that us in 2026, the reason why Black, Hispanic, and Native Americans are for the most part, I mean, the greatest musicians by far, the greatest rhyme scheme rappers, you understand? Other people may try to copy us, but the originators of hip hop, the reason why it comes so natural for our rhymes to really have that flow is because we've had generations of a head start with creating music, having an entire alphabet at our disposal where every single character basically rhymes with itself. Okay. The only time that it doesn't, of course, when you look at how a lot of these words have things that trail off at the end. So instead of sha, na, ya, so like sha, na, ya, ma, it's sha, na, yum. And so that might be the exception here, but we typically see a lot of the characters will have end results, but the beginning actually sounds very similar in every word that's spoken. So the whole entire language damn near rhymes with itself. That gives us such a huge advantage when it comes to making music that has that it factor, because rhyme is what makes music sound good. If somebody tries to make a song and they're not necessarily rhyming in the song, it kind of misses out on a lot of flavor. And we tend to use that language, our languages, and even twist words that sound similar enough to other words to make them rhyme instead of it being an exact word for word rhyme to sound similar enough. And then that still sounds good on any flow. So, given that our people are Black, Hispanic, and Native Americans are really adept when it comes to music, understand that our original language was created to sound like it rhymes with itself. Okay, it really does. So as we continue here, and let's start at verse 8 again. Kaya, ama, shanayam, ha rabah, ya chaya, ha adam. See that right there? Those have the same closing ending. Ha adam, ba kalam. There goes another one, right? Ya shamach, wa ya zakar, af, ha ma. So like ya ma ya, ha chama, so like ha chashak, ha chashak, kaya, ha rabah, ya hayawa. Yahayawa, that'll work. Kal, Shaba'ah, Habal. So notice how Kal and Habal actually rhymes. Notice how Sha Nayam, and then when you come over here, Ba Kalam actually rhymes. Now, we may not have the same cadence. This is something that, of course, we think of music structured with 4 bars, right? 4 beats per bar. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. Technically, the book of Psalms is a book that includes lyrics that can or might not be applied to instrumentals or beats. And so knowing what that sounds like in the ancient times could have a different cadence. It could have a different flow. Maybe beats were only three beats per bar. Maybe they were 5. Some of those things were experimented with most recently in the 30s and 40s in the jazz era, where instead of having a 4-beat bar, there may have been 3-beat bars, there may have been 6 or 8 5-beat bars that have been experimented with that did work. But we've kind of settled, generally speaking, on the 4-beat bar as the primary thing. And so bringing up music when it comes to Hebrew, we're just bringing that up because Ecclesiastes is a book of wisdom, just like how Proverbs and Psalms is also a book of wisdom. And so there's plenty to go through when it comes to that. Let's go ahead and read it one more time. Then what we'll do is we'll begin going in and breaking down that in Hebrew. Okay. So let's start from the top. Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 7. Wa ma tha wak. Wa ma tha wak. Ha awar. Wa ta. It's like a wa tawab. La ayanyam. La ra'awat. Ath. Ha shamash. Kaya. Ama. Manayam. Ha rabah. Ya kaya. Ha adam. Ba kalam. Ya shamach. Wa ya zakar. Ath. Ya maya. Ha chashak. Kaya. Ha rabah. Ya hayawa. Kal. Shaba'ah. Ha bal. All right. As you can tell, when it comes to reading the Hebrew, as we continue to study, as we continue to see these characters more often, we'll start to put it together in a flow. Also, knowing this, that as we're beginning to get used to where the root words are, it starts to give us a better understanding of how to pronounce some of these words in a safe way that we could say, okay, for the most part, this is correct. Because it won't be exactly like modern Hebrew. It won't follow all of the same rules as modern Hebrew. Because, like, when you look at the modern Hebrew today, there's characters technically in that alphabet that you don't see in the ancient Hebrew. So there may have been others that are added over time to try to fill in the gaps. But the thing is, this is it in its original form. When we think of the Most High's name, we think of the 4 characters for the Lord, YHWH. That comes from this format. So it's the original format of Hebrew that we're looking at right here. Now, let's go ahead and go into the Bible Hub app, just like we do during the Sabbath service. And again, we're going to Ecclesiastes chapter 11 and verse 7. And we're going to start by breaking down these word for word. So keep in mind before we start doing that we have prepositions and possessive adjectives, and more or less we're going to keep these rules on the board for forever, basically, because we constantly see these very same rules being applied to the root words, and that's where you get these clusters. These clusters of Hebrew words have a root word within them, but may have modifiers on the outside like yam or yan, which makes it plural, right? Or sometimes wath also makes akwath. Yeah, technically, yeah. Some of these make them plural, so you actually see them like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look here. So we got wa ma tha wak. Wa ma tha wak. The right word right here is mathawak. Mathawak, which means sweet or pleasant. Sweet or pleasant. So the root word, and I'm going to bracket it so you can see, mathawak, is fundamentally this portion right here. Okay? The wa means and. Now the translation is and is sweet. And I'm going to underline this right here because the root word mathawak means sweet. Mathawak means sweet. And I'm going to tell you right now, that actually can be used as a name. Say, for instance, you have a woman, right? And she's very soft-spoken or she's very pleasant. That actually can be used. Mathawak could be something that is absolutely relatable to the female characteristic when she's in her feminine aura, basically. You know what I'm saying? So, wa ma thawak, and is sweet or pleasant. So what I like to do is I'll give you the translation, And I'll give you some of the similes that tie with it because it gives you a dual understanding of that same verse that doesn't bring it away from what it's saying. It just adds to what it's saying so you can completely understand it. Because we constantly use a lot of these vocabulary words in the Hebrew for multiple things at the same time because it technically means multiple things at the same time, but it also gives us these different understandings that help give you a good understanding. When something is sweet, it's typically pleasant. So what does that mean? Things that have sweet in it, like honey, for example, naturally is sweet, right? But is also considered pleasant. Like the scripture says, therefore thou, my son, eat thou honey, for it is good. And so, quite honestly, honey would be considered pleasant. It would be used as an additive in certain things to make it sweeter, right? So you ever have Jack Daniels by itself, then you have it with the honey, it makes it more pleasant to taste. You understand? Just like that. Now, moving to the next word right here. Ha-a-war. Ha-a-war means the light. The ha means the. Now, a war in this case means bright or light. So let's get that. So it is sweet, the light. A war. The light. Okay. Understand what the brothers are saying right here. King Solomon was very wise when he was writing this. I'm going to show you just how in depth he is when he's breaking these things down. And he's telling us something that we see this every single day. We would understand how sweet and pleasant it is to have light. Just from just these two things right here relate to your children, they relate to you. You understand? And I'm going to show you more in depth here as we continue to break this down. Wa tawab. Wa tawab, and good. The root word here is tawab. So now you see why I like to read the Hebrew before we start breaking it down, because there's a lot of clutter here. But don't lose where I'm at with this. We want to understand it word for word, because the more that we see these words like tawab is actually a very simple vocabulary word that we use all the time. But my job is to make sure that we learn more vocabulary, that we learn more Hebrew words, that we start implementing our language, and then someday it'll be to the point where we could be sitting publicly at a restaurant and be speaking to each other in Hebrew more than we're speaking in other languages, and other people will not understand what we're saying. Because I'm tired of being at a Mexican restaurant and not knowing Spanish. I'm Hispanic and I don't know Spanish. I was taught a different slave language. And I hear other Spanish people talking to each other and he-heing and giggling and speaking in Spanish. I ain't gonna lie. I get a little bit left out, you know? I get a little bit salty about that. But when it comes to Hebrew, imagine us doing that with the Hebrew, man, quit playing. And they see blacks and Hispanics unifying under one language, people are going to hear that and be like, what language is that? Why is it so loud when they speak? Why is this language like as if it's written in all caps? Because Hebrew is like as if you're screaming, yelling. So it's perfect for us because we be yelling in the street. So we're really just practicing for when we learn Hebrew again. And giving out orders in the kingdom and things like that. So what we got so far? Wa mathawak. Wa mathawak. Ha awar. Wa tawab. So again, this word right here means sweet or pleasant. It does have a bit of a feminine side to it, right? This could be used as a Hebrew name for a female. Mathawak. Mathawak means pleasant or sweet. Be perfect for a woman that's not a loudmouth, right? Somebody that actually does fall in line and respect her husband and doesn't treat him wrong. Somebody with a sweet, soft voice that can nurture and take care of children. Not perfect for a woman like that. Well, that same nurturing and pleasant feeling, the light does that. And what light is it talking about? Well, let's read on. So it says, La ayun yum. We know that yum means plural. So we're talking about something that's plural right here. Let's see what that is. It says, La ayun yum. The root word here is, I believe it's ayun. Yeah. Ayun. Ayun. This means eyes. Okay. La as we go up here to the prepositions, la means either to or with, or in this case, for. Okay. So to, with, or for, meaning if say for instance, say we go get something to eat, right? And we divvy up the food, like we share the food, we order, maybe it's a pizza, maybe it's something that has portions, right? Like an order of wings, like a big order of wings. And then I take a plate and I set it aside and I say, hey, this is for you. It's the exact same thing as saying this is with you, because I'm then putting it for you. When something's for you, that means that it's now next to you.
Right.
So that means that it's with you. That means that it's given to you. So la can mean to, with, or for. So when we hold up that wine in the middle of the Sabbath service and we say la yasha Allah, we're saying to Israel, but that literally also means for Israel. You understand? And that's what's so heavy about our language. It's very versatile because it can mean multiple things that actually mean the same thing. And so what it does is it doesn't divide our opinion of what a scripture is saying when we read it. It adds to it, and then it like brings us all together with a magnified version of understanding because we're reading it in the ancient language. So when we say la ayanyam, oh my bad, the root word here is I, because ayan means I, but the yam makes it plural. Okay, so the yam is what makes it plural. This means for. The technically the la is invisible. It's just saying four eyes. Okay, so it's saying and sweet and pleasant the light and good for the eyes. Okay, and is sweet the light and good for the eyes. What? La ra awath. La ra awath. La ra awath. The root word here is ra'ah. Ra'ah. This right here. Ra'awath. To behold. So again, la right here means to in this case. Okay. And then ra'ah, when you look at it, it literally means, it says to meet, to advise, to appear, to behold. So in this case, the wa is what makes it mean behold. Oh, my bad. The ra'ah means behold. Okay. Now we go over here and says this doesn't actually say anything. This is just a joiner. Okay. Ha shamash. Ha shamash. The word right here, shamash, means sun. Sun, shamash. How good it is. So let's read that in the Hebrew real quick, then we'll really break it down. Okay. So it says, Wa mathawak. Ha. Oh, go ahead.
Wa mathawak.
Ha awar.
Ha awar.
Wa tawab.
Wa tawab.
La ayanyam.
La ayanyam.
La ra'awath.
La ra'awath.
Ah.
Hashamash.
Hashamash. What we said was, and it is sweet and pleasant, the light, and good for the eyes to behold the sun. So, as I'm going to say, light is important for children because when they go to bed at night, it takes a long time for them to be accustomed to being in the dark without their mother next to them. Right? It takes a while to get to the point from when a child is there in the same room as their mother to then being able to withstand the darkness on their own in their own bedroom.
Right.
There might be a point of time, maybe when they're toddlers, usually a little bit older, when they may have their own room. And in the moment that the light goes off, a lot of times the kid won't turn the light off and go to the bedroom on their own because they're afraid of the darkness just from having to turn the light off and then run and jump on the bed because they're afraid, and for whatever damn reason, they're afraid someone's going to reach out from under the bed and grab them by the toes or something, right? Usually that's why a lot of children, when they're very, very young, want their mother to tuck them in. The most important part of them tucking them in is the fact that it's the mother or father that turns the light off for them. so they don't have to go through that trauma of not having light. You understand? It's important for children. If somebody's in jail, if you're a grown man and you've been convicted as a felon of a murder or something that has you in confinement of some sort, there's levels to it, right? There's levels to it because the best time of the day for somebody that's in prison might be the moment they can go out where the sun is at. Just the fact of being able to be in the sun, right? To be able to see the sun. That might be what they call that. I forget what they call that. It's like recreation or something like that.
Time, yeah.
Rec time where they can go to the yard, they can play some basketball, they do something to be in the sun because your body needs that. Your body was made to absorb that. Maybe not other cultures, maybe not every ethnicity out there, but blacks and Hispanics, generally speaking, can absorb the sun, and it's good for them. That's why everybody's so happy and pleasant when the rain passes. There's a period of time where rain and darkness and bad weather is actually quite comforting for some people. But when it goes on and on and on, like during a season that doesn't include a lot of sunlight, it gets to be a drag. It affects people's moods. And then when the springtime hits, when the sun comes out, when you start to see things come back to life, it's good and pleasant for the eyes to behold it. But when you think about it, the whole planet appreciates that. All of the things that are green, that grow in the ground, that need the sun for it to grow, they appreciate that. And then because they're doing their thing, there's more oxygen on the earth. The whole planet benefits from there being light. And that's what the Most High created early on in those first 7 days. Okay? That at some point there was a light that was at the very beginning, and then there was a sun that was implemented to keep track of that cycle. Okay, so that's very important. That's not to be overlooked. Okay, there's not to be overlooked, because I'll tell you right now also, just like how when you're young and you got the energy to go out and be in the sun, there's a period of time that comes in people's life where they don't have the energy to do that, where they might be getting to the point where they're so old that they can't really go out and be about. They can't be at the family functions and cookouts at the park. They can't make it to these places. They're stuck in their rooms because they're decaying. You know what I'm saying? A grandfather that's 86 years old might not be able to be in the sunlight as often. Can't go out and cut his grass anymore as often. And so there is a period of time to really appreciate just the fact that you can sustain being out there. Because technically, as pleasant as the sun is, it's also what? It's very dangerous. Right. It burns you. You can't behold it too much, otherwise it hurts you. You understand? But it's there, and it's something to be appreciated. It's not something to be praised or worshiped. That's not what we're talking about. Because again, people get confused just for the fact that we use the Magun Dawada, and they think that, oh, y'all worshiping a star or something like that. Well, no, the sun looks more like this than it does like this. But people use this shape just to kind of represent the rays that come from it. And that's not what the scriptures is talking about. When it's talking about these things right here, we're actually breaking this down. This is in preparation for a whole chapter that deals with darkness, okay? When you read Ecclesiastes chapter 12, it's preparing you for a time that, in the way that Solomon is mentioning it right here, is to prepare your mind to understand what he's talking about as he continues into the next chapter. We're actually starting this new series about Ecclesiastes chapter 12 by prefacing it with what was just said at the end of chapter 11, because it's so heavy that it prepares you for what's next to come. All right, so now we got that. So let's go ahead and read it one more time, then we'll continue. Wamatawak.
Wamatawak.
Ha-awar.
Ha-awar.
Watawab.
Watawab.
La-ayanyam.
La-ayanyam.
La-ra'awath.
La-ra'awath.
Ath.
Ath.
Hashamash.
Hashamash.
All right. Now let's read it all. Go ahead and read it all through.
Sir.
Go ahead.
Wamatawak.
You had it?
Wamatawak. Ha-awar. Watawab. La-ayanyam. La-ra'ayath. Wath. Atha.
This is
Ath.
Shamash.
Shamash.
And I'll break this down real quick too. So just this looking at the word sun, the way we break down the Hebrew sometimes, this right here means tooth. This means water. And this means tooth. Sharp. Because the rays of the sun are sharp, like a tooth. Rays, they pierce through space. They can pierce through the firmament, which was created to block things from space.
Right.
That's how powerful the sun is in that sense. It's also a water. Why is the sun a water? Because water is a form of what? Nourishment.
Right.
The sun is also a form of nourishment.
Okay.
And when you look at the book of Genesis, and it says, when you're actually reading the Hebrew, it says that the firmament was created to separate the waters from the waters.
Okay.
And what you find in water is elements. Okay.
Right.
And so when you're talking about the sun is a very strong element or conglomerate of elements that nourish and at the very same time can destroy, because the sun is as if millions and millions of nuclear bombs are going off every 5 seconds. That's what the sun is. The sun is essentially the like when you think of a nuclear bomb, like what happened with Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and you've seen the movie or any of the movie like Terminator 2 or Oppenheimer, or any movie that has a nuclear bomb going off. Well, the sun is just a consistent form of that's pulled inwards due to gravity. It's a very strong thing. Right. Just to see it from the distance that we're seeing it from on Earth is crazy, because that just goes to show how large it actually is as far away as it is. Okay, but the Most High ordained for our solar system to be the way that it is, and it's at the perfect spot where you just get it just enough of it throughout the year, more so if you're close to the equator, right? Not so much if you're near the North or South Pole, but it's just enough to be pleasant. Also just enough to, it's funny too, because it's the perfect amount to be pleasant for the children of Israel while not being pleasant for Esau. You know what I'm saying? So trust the Lord, man, because he's the one that set in order all these things. Okay. And there's other scriptures that I could pull that kind of go into detail on that too, maybe after class, if you remind me. Now we're going to the next the next verse right here. Kaya. Let me get back to it. So verse 8. Kaya means but. But, or although, I believe, right? Doubtless, or now rightly. Oh, that's interesting. Seen. So when you look at the word kaya, it can mean therefore. It can mean although. It can mean but. So this is kind of like entonces.
Right. Okay.
So think of it kind of like entonces, because it's kind of like preparing you for the next thought. You understand? That's important, because what he's about to say is what's about to be said right here is crazy. It says kaya, ama means if. Ama means if. Sha nayam. If years. So the word year is shan, shana, or shan, something like that. But the yam makes it plural. It says, but if years, ha rabah. Ha rabah. Many. The root word here is, let me see if it loads. Rabah. Abundance. Or many. But if years of many, but if an abundant amount of years, it says Ya Chaya. Ya Chaya lives. Chaya means life. Chaya. Or quicken. But if years of abundance lives, Ha-Adam. Ha means the man or a man. In this case, it translates to a man, because Adam is the root word for man. Kaya means life or breath. I believe. Let me see.
Isn't Ayash also man too?
Mm-hmm. Sometimes there's more than one word for something. You know what I'm saying? Because a man could be more than one thing, not like more than one gender. I'm talking about like more like a man could be a general, a man could be a father. Those are all technically things that mean man, right? But even in that, the word father may mean a man, but also may mean the Most High in a sense.
Right.
So that's why this would be the best option to use for this verse. Though there may have been other words that are similar that could actually be used as well, and that's why we look at all these vocabulary words to see it more and more examples of it. You know what I'm saying? We want to see as many examples of them as possible to see how they're used in sentences, and of course, the hardest part about learning Hebrew, in my opinion, is just the sentence structure. So it's so backwards from what we're used to. It's more closer to Spanish than it is English, though. So people that know Spanish might actually be able to catch on with the sentence structure a little bit easier than us that speak English predominantly. So ha adam ba kalam. Ha adam ba kalam. The root word here is kal, which means all. So ba kalam. Yeah, kal. Technically, it's this. Kal means all, but this is saying in them all. Read that in the KJV, Ecclesiastes 12 and 8, so you can understand what exactly is being said. It says it a little bit different here. But if years of abundance lives a man, in them all rejoices. It's Yah Shamach. Yah Shamach. Shamach right here means cheer, merry, rejoice. Rejoice. Rejoices. Or cheerfully. In them all cheerfully. Or brightly. Read that in the English now. Go ahead.
No, sir.
Just the first half. Don't read all of it.
Okay. But if a man live many years and rejoice in them all.
That's what it's saying. So that's how we understand it in English. We're saying, but if years of abundance lives a man in them all cheerfully.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So this is the end of the thought. Then this reinforces the thought. So it says, if a man lives many years, right? It says, and rejoices in them all. It also says, wa ya zakar. That wa starts to add something to it, but it can also mean but, or it can also mean hold up a second.
Yeah.
Remember this too. So that's why it says wa ya zakar. It says and okay. So the root word here, let's get that, is zakar. That's the root word. Wa ya zakar means and let remember. So that's saying and let him remember, but it's technically saying and let remember.
Or
yeah, or and will remember. So you see the preposition here, Yah.
Right.
So you could basically say and yet will remember. So remember is zakar. All right. The ath is kind of a filler right here. Then it says yamaya. Yamaya. The root word here is yawam, which is technically these two right here. It just doesn't have the wa. So it's saying the days. The days. Or day. That's what it's saying. If a man lived many years and cheerfully lives in all of them, and yet will remember the days, it says ha kashak. Ha
Kashak.
kashak.
Kashak is like darkness, right? Like dark.
Yeah, it means darkness. That's how it translates even in the English. It says, remember the dark times too. But hold up. This means rejoicing cheerfully in all the days of his abundant years of living. Right? But he has to always remember the days of darkness. So what gets him through those dark days cheerfully and rejoicefully? It's the fact that he knows that the Most High has us go through this ebb and flow of good and bad. That's what makes us rejoice in it, because even the bad stuff that happens, you know what? It's going to explain. So let's actually get there. So Kashak. This is important. You know why this is important? Because we get so caught up in the good times in our life that we don't remember the bad times in our life. And then when the bad happens, you won't remember the good times in your life.
Right.
Because you'll be so caught up in when bad times hit that you think that everything is always gonna be like that. Like when you're happy in life, say, I don't know, you just get married, right? You got a new your living situation improves. It could be something like when you're young, your football team wins, the one that you're playing on, right? Y'all succeed and do all these different things. There's an up and down, like a roller coaster ride. There's the good. Do you know why the tip of the roller coaster is the best part, or the bad, and the down is the bad? Why is that?
The down is the bad because it's about to be over,
and
you're about to go back up.
No, the down. Why is I'm thinking about when you're on a roller coaster. Why is the up the best feeling and the downside the worst feeling?
The downside is because you feel like you're about to die.
Yes, but why?
Why? Because of fear, I guess.
Think about the actual physics of it. I'm telling you, it goes right along with this.
The physics of it, because your inwards are coming up.
Yeah, because of the gravity.
Yeah.
You feel the weight of it.
Right.
That's how you feel in darkness.
Oh, okay.
So you feel the weight of it. When you're at the top of the roller coaster, that's when gravity is not affecting you. That's where you get as closest to being like in space where there is no gravity. Because when you're at the top, you got negative G's because the body's like you're going against gravity. Remember, the earth has been pulling you towards it your whole life.
Right.
You're just used to the way that feels. You're so used to it that it's just normal for, if you have pain in your back, you hunch over because you're trying to relieve gravity from putting pain on your back. When you're on a roller coaster, obviously you can't really deal with roller coasters if you got back problems. Although some of them are smooth enough now, it shouldn't be a problem. But I haven't tried. It's been a while for me. But what I'm saying though is that just the highs and lows. So somebody that rejoices cheerfully in all these years of living a long life remembers the bad days with the good days. That's what keeps it balanced. Right. That's what helps them appreciate it. That's also what helps them get through the dark times, because he's constantly remembering the good times. And then in the times of good, remember the bad times. That's why I always bring up that phrase that the Jamaicans always use. They never miss their water till their well runs dry, because it's when we overindulge in the good times that we get caught off guard when bad things happen.
Right.
That's a constant thing. Like it could be loss. It could be loss of family. It could be loss of health. It could be loss of monetary gain. It could be loss of the ability to maintain yourself, either physically, financially, whatever it is. Right. There's that ebb and flow. But somebody that's somebody that knows how to master the ability to rejoice even in the darkness, they'll live a long time. That's why the scripture's so heavy, because of that. You understand? If you look at it, you see that that's really what it's saying. So because that's the case, now when we read verse 1 and it's saying, and it's sweet the light and good for the eyes to behold the sun, why is that? Because we know that there's going to be time where the sun is not there. There's going to be time where light is not there. This is so important for us to understand, especially right now. Because the day of the Lord is what? Darkness and not light, right? So who's going to rejoice at that time, while the rest of the world is worried and anxious and depressed because the market starts to lose its security. The money starts to lose value. Literally the sun gets blotted out from radioactive, nuclear fallout, or just the sun being blotted out. You could imagine the war zones over World War II and the World War I days from all of the smoke from the bombs and gunpowder, to the point where you couldn't even see the sky. You couldn't see the sun. You understand? There was an excerpt. There was a moment on a game called Battlefield 1. It was so heavy. It was a black soldier from Harlem in the game.
Right.
You played as one of the men of bronze. They were known as the Harlem Hellfighters. And in this cinematic, he's talking about how they push and we push back. They take ground, we give ground. We take ground, they give ground. And then he says something real heavy. He says, and if you last long enough, sometimes the clouds part and you can actually see the sun. Yeah. I was like, damn. But that can only happen when the battle actually stops.
Right.
Because that's when all the bombs stop dropping. That's when everything's less chaotic. Sometimes it would still happen during the daytime, but it got so bad, especially during the German Kaiserschlag, which was their attack on Britain and, in France and places like that, that it got so bad that there was so many shellings that first of all the whole ground was destroyed. But then where was all of that? It was all in the air. Because that's what it does. It just disintegrates everything from that was on the ground, and now it's in the air, and that's why it's airborne to the point where it blocks out the sun. So that is something that is good and pleasant. Just to see that just shows that maybe it's time to relax finally. But also you got to have that balance, because you can indulge in that for a little bit, that pleasant thing, that light. But understand that the darkness always shows up. It's not all going to be good. If you live in a generation that's just had it all good, what do they say about that generation? They say they're soft. They say that they're weak. They ain't gone through no hard times. They ain't lived through nothing. So the people that have been living most of their life in the darkness, they got that same. They embrace that darkness to the point where they find pride in that.
Right.
You understand? And it's kind of a toxic thing at the same time that it's honorable, because they're so used to it that it's like, pain is my whole life. I've learned to rejoice in that. That if you do that, you won't be able to rejoice in times of good, because you're so involved with darkness. That's why a woman that's in an abusive relationship, she always goes after bad, toxic relationships, because she has been trained to rejoice in the darkness. She won't even appreciate when a good man comes along that can give her something that's opposite of that.
Right.
That's why this applies to everything. When we read this, it's talking about everything. So a man that lives many years in abundance, what does he do? He remembers, the days of darkness. And then it says kaya, which means all, I believe, right? It says the days of darkness. Kaya means 4 in this case. 4. Look at this. Ha Rabbah. Ha Rabbah. For many. And how do we know that? Because it says Rabbah right here. Ha Rabbah. And so it says for many. So Yah Ha Yahweh. Yah Ha Yahweh. Ha Yah right here. Technically it's this. There's a ha at the end, but it says Yah Ha Yahweh, which means
Yahweh.
They will be. Oh. Shabbat. That is coming. Shaba'ah.
Shabbat.
The root word here should be bawa'ah. That's right here. It's ba'ah. Shaba'ah. That is coming. So the sha actually is used as that or something like that. And then it says habal, which this is a very interesting thing too. So the word habal, check this out. Habal, this is going to be one of our main root words right here. Habal is H1892 is pronounced ha ball. Okay. You got that? This right here means we got a brother in the school that named Habal.
Breath.
Means breath. In this scripture, it's saying vanity, which means nothing. And that's what breath is. Breath, you can't see it. You can't visually see it. So it's considered nothing. But it's important because it is like the breath is essential to it. So it's crazy how this something like vanity means it's not essential. But how is it the same word as like the most essential thing for us?
Yo.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Dude,
That's why it says it says all that is coming is vanity. Habal is vanity, which means nothing, and it means breath. Now, could it be incorrect to use the word? It says all that is coming is breath. No, but what it is saying is all that is coming is needed, while at the very same time, all that is coming is not needed.
Yo.
That's why. That's how important it is to understand and always remember the days of darkness. Whether you got something good going for you in your life, or if you're down and out and you feel like life ain't worth living, or you got this kind of problem, or you feel like you're giving up. Understand this. God's doing that because he's giving you what you need to experience. Because why? We deserve it. When you really understand that part of it, that us in the flesh here, living the way we do, in this body, and going through that ebb and flow of coming up from our youth and being able to understand things the way that we understand things as we get older. And it is through our experience that we become wiser, and then that begins to sharpen our spirit. And then hopefully by the time it's all said and done, we've lived many years. And hopefully during that time, we've learned to rejoice in the times of good and the times of bad, because all of it is necessary. And again, at the same time, once it's all said and done for that particular life, then it seems like vanity. But what carries on is the lessons learned, and that spirit keeps it, which is what the breath is. Because the breath is actually what we consider all the stuff that's bad happening. It's all completely necessary. It's just crazy how that's the word. That's the word that's used right there, right? So what did we say? It was breath, vanity. What was the other definition? I just had it. It was delusion. Delusion's a good one. Delusion. Oh man.
Delusion.
Why is that heavy?
Yeah.
You know why that's heavy? Because if you understand when bad things are going on, like if you, like, say for instance, have health problems, if you have mental battles that you're facing, you begin to understand that it's really a delusion to allow it to overcome you, because we're supposed to have that balance, supposed to actually rejoice even when you have that. Not that it's like if you embrace it too much, that's where you start living your whole life like that.
Right.
That's why somebody that grew up in the ghetto and grew up around violence, grew up around death and drugs and all that kind of stuff, they may learn to love it so much that then their whole life becomes that path, and then it's all darkness. Somebody that's in prison for so long, they get so used to not being able to go outside, or not being able to experience things that are going to be more pleasant, more, how do I say, beneficial to actually the enjoyment of life. So much so that when they have the opportunity to actually enjoy things, they won't appreciate it. They won't know how to accept it. Because it's like you're supposed to be right here, and there's people that are so used to up here, they can't handle this. There's some people that are so used to this, they can't handle this. You're supposed to be able to get used to both.
Right.
You understand? That's what the scripture is saying. It's going in and it's talking about it real heavily. I'm gonna screenshot this. I recommend y'all do that too. Now go ahead and let's read it in the English one more time, and then we'll read it in the Hebrew one more time. What time is it? Okay, got a little time. I want to at least get that right.
So let me pull it up. Ecclesiastes 11:7.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Start at 7, yeah.
This is the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 11, verse 7.
Mm-hmm.
Truly, the light is sweet, and a pleasant thing it is for the eyes to behold the sun.
Now, why again do we say that that's good? Because again, the sun represents
Nourishment.
something positive.
Right.
Yeah. Being able to go out, you know what I'm saying? Some of your best memories growing up might have been at somewhere that included the sun.
Right.
Included light. So about the example of how kids they like having the light on. Some kids, they're so used to having light they can't sleep without it. Maybe because their parents didn't give them both. Didn't get them used to being in the dark when they were a baby, because the darkness meant that they couldn't see their mama, and they become so attached to their parent they can't even have the light off because they don't see that their mama is there, and that scares them.
Right.
But if you start him early enough to get used to that, then he'll appreciate the light when it's there, but then he'll also appreciate the darkness because that's time for him to go to sleep.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So having that balance is important. Go ahead.
Verse 8. But if a man live many years and rejoice in them all, yet let him remember the days of darkness, for they shall be many.
That's the heavy thing too. So just as often as you would like life to be like this, you have to understand that you also need life to be like this too. You can't all be happy-go-lucky. That's something that Esau's learned the hard way.
Right.
Because for hundreds of years, he's lived in abundance. He's lived in light. He doesn't know how to handle any kind of adversity. He needs to cheat to stay on top. He needs to kill to stay on top. He doesn't have that spirit in him to find that balance. He's become spoiled because of it. And then the problem is when he gets so used to the darkness, and this, of course, applies to certain Edomites, not all of them. They get so used to the darkness, that's all they know. They become serial killers. You understand? They become mass murderers. They become presidents. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not our culture to be the way they are. But what's happened is because we don't read these scriptures and really dive in and understand them, and of course read them in the Lashon Kodash, because that's what's really going to give us an even deeper understanding of all of these words. Like Habal, for example, would have never guessed that. Would have never guessed that it meant that. But it's using it right there because it's telling you that just as breath, you breathe it and then it's gone, and it does, and you're not supposed to hold on to it.
Right.
You're supposed to look at good and bad just like that. Don't let it stop you from moving forward. Keep it moving.
Don't linger on it.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? There's a scripture that's real heavy where it talks about when an arrow parteth the wind, it leaves that wind as if it wasn't there. But there's that moment of drastic interaction between the tip of the arrow piercing the wind to get through it. That's what it is like to go through good and bad.
Right.
That moment of interaction with it at its peak is what brings the ecstasy from good or pleasant things, or what brings the ultimate despair and pain and suffering from the bad things. But you have to understand that in times of good, you got to rejoice in the Most High for giving you that experience. Right. And in times of bad, you got to rejoice in the Most High for giving you that experience, because you deserve those in waves. We deserve it.
Right.
Understand that in times of bad, in times of pain and suffering, the Lord loves you enough to have still given you anything good in your life. Because we don't deserve it. Christ deserved it. We don't deserve it.
Right.
You understand? And so for the Most High to give us these moments, understand that we're still paying for our ancestry, paying for the sins of our forefathers, which was us. We really understood it. And so because of that, we have to consider that all that is coming is essential for us, but not to be held on to any particular accord where it prevents us from getting the job done that we're supposed to be doing. You know what I'm saying? So take the good with the bad, is what it's saying. That's what these two verses are saying. Now let's go ahead and read it in the Lashon Kodash, and then we will erase it and start getting the next section ready. So,
Wamathawak.
Yeah. Go ahead and read. Go ahead and read through it as you can.
Come on, sir. Hamatawak.
I'm gonna check the comments.
Watawak. La I yun yum. La ra'a yath. Hasham Ama Shanayam Harabai no Haraba Yaka Ya Ha'ai. It's like a Ha'a Dam Baka. It's like Baka Lam Yasham Mach Wa Ha Zakar Yamaya Haka Shak Kaya Haraba Ya Ha Yawa Call Shaba'a Habal.
Excellent. Let me give it a try. Read from the top again.
From concert.
Let me see if I can get through it. Wamatawak Ha Awar Watawab La Ayanyam La Ra'awath Ath Ha Shamash Kaya Ama Manayam like Shanayam Ha Rabah Ya Kaya Ha Adam Ba Kalam Wa Shama Wa Yazakar Ath Yamaya Chashak Kaya Ha Rabah Ya Hayawa Ka Shaba'a Abal. Yeah, it's definitely almost like a tongue twister, but the more we see,
it's almost like poetic though.
It's very poetic, especially as we get into the next chapter. One of the reasons why I decided to start a series here and not another chapter in Psalm is because as I read this recently, I understood the way it's being delivered, even what we get as the end result of it being in English for the King James version, is still very poetic. So I wanted to go into this to see just how incredible this is in the Lashon Kodash. And this is so crazy too, because these classes get put out there on the airwaves, and it's almost like it's a super exclusive thing to have the spirit to stick through something like this.
Right.
So you really get the chance to absorb something incredible in studying the Hebrew like this. I had a brother hit me up the other day talking about one of the classes and sessions that I did, a couple months back that really helped him get through the things that are going on in our Colleen school,
right,
and the most recent things that are happening there, and they really got my mind clicking on how I can reinforce that very same mentality that was brought out in those scriptures with more scriptures that reinforce that how to hold strong in that time, because none of this is easy.
Right.
None of this is easy. We think the good is easy, but there's a heaviness in the back of our mind, knowing that that roller coaster is going to start going back down at any minute. And then just like as you're dealing with the pain and suffering from going back down, you gotta realize, okay, hold up, this is the part where we start coming back up again.
Right.
Sometimes roller coaster just stays down though. Stays down, it goes even further down. It's like, is it ever gonna go back up? But then there's that part of the roller coaster that starts climbing up real slow. It starts to get into everybody's just that tension that builds up. It's like
you see the sun coming out.
Then you see, yeah, because you coming out the tunnel now, you actually seeing, okay, you know what? This is higher than it was. This ain't that bad. Oh, and then there's that moment again where it's like, yep, there's the edge, right? Yep. If you ever gone to the Iron Rattler on Six Flags here in San Antonio, you'll know that feeling because as it comes down, it hangs for a little bit, but where it's hanging at, like it's not like there's that whole valley that they built the whole park on. Yeah. But the roller coaster was built at the top of the cliff where the wall was at, and it was up there. So as you're hanging in, you're actually seeing like the whole edge of it and then everything below that. So there was like levels to how much you felt like you're about to fall down. And then as it starts to twine and go through the whole thing, it goes into the cavern. They dug a hole in the wall. So you actually literally go, boom, after all that, you go through the darkness, and you come right back out at the very end.
That's what's up.
That's a hell of a roller coaster. And it's smooth too. It used to be smooth. It used to be really, really tough. They used to call it the Rattler, and everybody used to call it the Rattler as like you would rattle your back because it would hurt to get on it because it was a wooden coaster. And they redid it, and then they used iron beams, and they made it run real smooth. Rocky Mountain Construction did that. I used to love watching stuff about roller coasters, so I understood a lot about it, how smooth they were and stuff like that. But what I'm saying though is that same essence you get even just in that ebb and flow in the day-to-day things. So that's something that I thought was heavy. This scripture right here is just the beginning. There's a lot more. As a matter of fact, I'm about to erase this.
I got a picture.
You did? Okay. Because
it's gone.
That's it. It's gone. It'll be, you know, for as long as YouTube has servers that keep that video on the internet, then you got a chance to actually get that breakdown. Otherwise, you probably won't see me break this down like this for this verse ever again. So get it while you can, because it's like a breath in the wind. Be here for a second, and it's gone, bro. It's vanity. You know what I'm saying? The only people that appreciate it are the ones that actually want you here to see it. Now we got verse 8 out the way as well. So now we're going to go into verse 9, which is about to get crazy, okay? Because this starts to finish off the chapter strong. So I'm gonna go to it. Let's see. Chapter 9. And it says, rejoice. Okay, that's how it starts off. So let me see if I can write it clean. I'm trying not to write
this verse gets heavy.
No. Now that's some clean looking Hebrew, bro. That's about as clean as I can get it. Man, that's okay. But
something like that because the door's unlocked.
Okay. Man, that's a heck of a word. Bayalad. Yeah.
No, that's like a young man.
Bayaladwathyak. Bayaladwathyak. Shama Bathawar Bayaladwathyak. Says wa ya. Let me see. Wa ya ta Ya.
Wayata.
Ba.
Ya. Ba.
Waya ta ya bak. Waya ta ya bak. Again, we're gonna break these down here in a minute. Those are some really chunks. Those are some chunks, man. Those are some chunks. The root word will clarify it.
Right.
That's why I said don't get intimidated when you see this. When we see our class, I like to start the class off with just boom, Hebrew on the board. And you're like, man, what the heck is all this? And then by the end of the class, you're like, oh, that means that, and that's the root word for that, and that's how that, okay, and that's how it sounds, and that's what it means. And that's the whole point of why these classes exist, because it's giving you the vocabulary while I'm also actually teaching the class. But it's crazy because not to be like a Christian church, you use one scripture and talk for 2 hours and then you sing and dance. What we're doing is we're taking like a few scriptures and just diving into it like an Olympic swimming pool level dive. You know what I'm saying? Like when they jump from like way up here and then they go so far deep. That's the way we absorb it. We ain't going no surface level stuff like the Christian church, because again, what reinforces how we're understanding it is going into it in a different language. So people that kind of look from the outside in and like, well, if you're Hebrew Israelite, why aren't you fluent in Hebrew? I'm getting there, just chill. But we're learning this in a way that's not authorized by the white man for us to learn it.
Right.
We're learning it in a way that the Lord gives us the spirit to understand it. And that's what they don't understand. That's what they'll never get, because God is working through us to get such a good understanding of these scriptures that it's going to heal us. Even when we're going through the pain we go through, even when we're dealing with the suffering and the oppression that we're dealing with, that we understand everything about what we're going through. And that's what the scriptures are really here to give us. They're supposed to give us a perspective so that we can appreciate God at all times.
Right.
You understand? That's what it's talking about. And definitely appreciate how even a language as simplistic as Hebrew is supposed to be does have some complicated stuff going on right here. Look at these characters. You think, man, what am I about to read? Well, that's what we're getting there. So let me see. So wa ya ta ya bak, and then we got labak. Okay, labak. This looks like college level ancient Hebrew.
Yeah.
I feel like, you know what I mean? It's like when you start getting to the more advanced stuff, we can learn the alphabet, we can learn the tribes and doing that, but actually getting into sentences, it gets real interesting real quick. You know what I'm saying? Ba yam ya. Okay. Ba yam ya. Yawan. I'll just go with that. Ba. Ka. War. Oh man. Baka Wara. Okay. Baka Wara. Baka Wara. What's that? I'm pretty sure that's how it goes. It's either that or these two are tied together. But the root word here is Bakarwath. But there's Bakarwath. The only thing that was there's a wa in the middle here and a wa in the middle here. So it's Bakawar wa thak. No. Bakawaro wa. See, because that wa is, see, the root word again is ba ka rawath. Ba. So it's ba ka wa ra tha in this case because it's changed.
Oh, okay.
It's changed a little bit. So I'm just going to leave these there and then have the end the way that it is. For now, we'll see if I need to change it. Wa halak. Wa halak.
Wa halak.
Wa halak. Ba darakya. Darakya. Labak. This is just verse 9. Verse 9 goes quite a ways. Wa bamar ayah. Bamar. Ayanya. Kaya. I'll call Allah. It's pronounced right here. I think these actually tie together, so it's Allah. These. It says Ya Ba Ya Ka. And these are some, okay. Ya Ba Ya Ba Ya Ka. Ya Ba Ya Ka. Allahayim.
Phone froze.
Ba Mashapat. Now, this we're going to break down in the next class, but let's actually practice, and we'll read verse 9 in English, and then we'll read it in Hebrew, and then we'll start the next class by breaking this one down.
Come on, sir.
So let's go ahead and get that. Oh, Ecclesiastes. Here, I got it. Ecclesiastes chapter 11 and verse 9, and it reads, "Rejoice, O young man, in thy youth, and let thy heart cheer thee in the days of thy youth, and walk in the ways of thine heart, and in the sight of thine eyes. But know thou that for all these things, God will bring thee into judgment. And so this is heavy too, because as we got through reading just now about how somebody lives a long life, they learn to appreciate the good days with the bad. What did it say about the bad days? It said that there would be many.
Right.
But why is it that there's so many bad days towards the end of your life and so many good days at the beginning of your life?
Because judgment.
Because the judgment the Most High brings because of the choices you make early on. Your body is more able, when you're able to sustain, certain lifestyles without dealing with the repercussions, when you have the ability to move the way you want to move. When you're young, you got all the energy. Hell, you fall, you get right back up. If you was 17, 18 years old and you was in high school going to all the house parties every single weekend, college, going partying all weekend, you end up paying for it later on. Right? And who knows what you did during that time. If you was in the world, ain't no telling. That's why the Most High is so righteous for saying this, because it's like, oh, you thought you was gonna just live it up the way you want and not deal with the other side of the equation? Nah, he's got something for us. He's gonna make sure that we experience all of it based off of how we are. But if you're the kind of person that takes the time of your youth to learn righteousness and to learn correction and to learn to take the good with the bad, and to not have so many good days in your youth coming up, to allow yourself to be bored sometimes, to allow yourself to have sacrificed the freedoms of youth to be able to prepare yourself for the rigors of adulthood, then when the adulthood hits, what's going to happen? It's not going to be all bad because you were prepared for it. You'll be more sustainable. That's the whole point of why these scriptures is so heavy, because as it prepares us for chapter 12, it's going to hone in on that and the aspects of life to really zone in on that. Now, let's go ahead and read it in the Hebrew. Understand? Go ahead and read it in the Hebrew, and then we'll get to attacking this and its root words in the next class. All right? Shema, Bachawar, Ba Yalad, Wathyak.
Wathyak.
Repeat it again.
Bayalad, Wathyak.
Bayalad. I think you probably could say it like this. Because Yalad is what, you know what? No. Because I'm pretty sure if in the ancient Hebrew, just use the root word and you're good. Bayalad. Bayalad Wathyak. Bayalad Wathyak. A little bit tougher there, but we got through that. So, Waya Taya Bak. Waya Taya Bak. Labak. Which means hard. Bayamya.
Bayamya.
Or Yamaya, something like that. Bayamya. Baka wa ra wathak. Normally it would be wak or wath, right? Or wathka or something like that. Baka war.
Bakawar, Wathak.
There's rules involved in there. I'm gonna iron that out for the next class so we can really zone in on that, because some of those things that it does, when it's almost like it's forcing us to do, is mainly because of the understanding that comes from the modern Hebrew, because things like adding and implementing words in between characters changes the way that the root word sounds. So sometimes that's okay, but it depends on the vocabulary word. That's why we say shalom and not shalom, because changing it, implementing was in the middle of the word, it changes the way it sounds. And we try to sound as original as we can. So in this case, we'll just read the word for, like, we're translating it from the Assyrian Hebrew, but just understand that in the modern Hebrew, or in the ancient Hebrew, it may have a slightly different sound, but we won't fret about that too much. Wahalak, go ahead. Badarakia. Labak.
Yeah.
So say it again. Bamar Aya. Bamar, okay. Ayan Yak. Ayan Yak. Wadai. Kaya.
Kaya.
Alkal. Allah, yep. This.
Ya ba ya ka.
Ya ba ya ka. Yabayaka.
Yabayaka.
Wahalahayam. Now, so put it together. Ha-alahayam.
Yum.
Ha-alahayam.
Ha-alahayam.
Ha-alahayam. We're so used to that. We just got to struggle and all this. We're like, wait, I know this one.
Yeah.
Ba-ma-shapat.
Ba-ma-shapat.
In the judgment. All right. So,
Alahayam ba-ma-shapat.
all right, we'll read one more time, and then we'll leave. We'll pick up on the next class. And I still needed to finish one more verse on this chapter, so we'll kind of get through that in the next class. Let's read it one more time.
Shamak.
No, just repeat after me.
Okay.
Shamak.
Shamak.
Ba-chawar.
Ba-chawar.
Ba-yalad wathyak.
Ba-yalad
wathyak.
Ba-yalad wathyak.
Ba-yalad wathyak. More that we read it, the better we'll get at it, right? Wa-ya-tayabak.
Wa-ya-tayabak.
Wa-ya-tayabak. Labak.
Labak.
Ba-yamya.
Ba-yamya.
Ba-chawarawathak.
Ba-chawarawathak.
Ba-chawarawathak. Okay. Wahalak.
Wahalak.
Ba-dawakya. It's like a ba-darakya.
Ba-darakya.
Labak.
Labak.
Wa-bamar aya.
Wa-bamar
aya.
aya.
Ailan. It's like ayanyak.
Ayanyak.
Wadai.
Wadai.
Kaya.
Kaya.
Al.
Al.
Kal.
Kal.
Allah.
Allah.
Ya-ba-ya-ka.
Ya-ba-ya-aka.
Ha-alahayam.
Ha-alahayam.
Ba-mashapat.
Ba-mashapat.
All right. Is your phone back on?
Okay.
Now read in English again.
This is Ecclesiastes, verse 11, verse 9. Rejoice, O young man, in thy youth, and let thy heart cheer thee in the days of thy youth, and walk in the ways of thine heart, and in thy sight of thine eyes.
And you know what's heavy about this? What's heavy about this is that the Lord, there's a time where the Most High is letting you do your thing, right?
Right.
And it's mostly in your time of youth that you're able to do your thing without those repercussions happening more instantly. Like I said, the way people live, right? If you're the kind of person that always gets into fights and stuff, it's easier to do that when you're younger.
Right.
That's why people retire before they turn 40 in the boxing ring. It's easier to play basketball when you're younger. When you get older, you might tear your ACL trying to do that move you try to do when you're younger. Right. Your knees might give out. You know what I'm saying? You gotta keep those things in mind. The choices you make when you're younger, right? If you spend your time in your youth eating a bunch of junk food, and when you get older, your body ain't performing and doing the things it needs, and you going to the doctor for this and that, what have you. It's the Most High showing where your spirit is at. What is the Most High doing? He's seeing where your spirit is at, because that's not the first time you've been on this earth.
Right. So
when he's saying enjoy the time of your youth, what he's really saying, like what he's saying as he's saying this, is that this is the time for you to really show me what you've learned in your past lives. That this is a life. Let's see where your spirit is at. And a lot of times there are people, like a lot of times even within the same family, you'll have two brothers, right? One brother lives a life like this, the other brother lives a life like that. And they're both enjoying the time of the youth, but in different ways.
Right.
They're making the decisions that they're making now, and then that reaps the reward or the punishment or judgment later in their life. So it's real heavy that the scriptures is doing this as we read these chapters and we read these verses in Ecclesiastes. Again, that is King Solomon's wisdom. Okay, when you're reading the book of Ecclesiastes, much like how Ecclesiasticus, which is the wisdom of Ecclesiastes means wisdom, I believe. Right. Ecclesiasticus means wisdom of Yahushua, which was the name of a man that was the son of Sirach in the Apocryphal times. So keep that in mind. We're going to continue to break this down to get more insight on that wisdom that King Solomon gave to us to carry on to the next generation. So let's not sleep on that. Let's lock into this and practice this Hebrew, because right now, I mean, what we're doing is incredible. Being able to read the Hebrew like this, and even as we struggle through it, to really reach out and take back what belongs to us from the ancient times, from thousands of years ago, being echoed on this earth in a very small sanctuary that it ain't being echoed anywhere else. It's literally, this is exclusive understanding of the Bible. The Most High is been blessing us to be able to understand this and to learn as we go, but also to help our brothers and sisters keep an even deeper understanding of the scriptures, to add on to our understanding and to really solidify the doctrine that the UPK has been teaching, that Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans are truly those people waking up. And as we're doing this, bombs are being dropped on the other side of the globe.
Right.
But what you need to understand is because we're doing this, bombs are being dropped on the other side of the planet.
Right on.
So the very least you could do is learn to go through what you're going through right now, because you could be getting bombed right now.
Yep.
You could have a hypersonic missile laying right here in this parking lot. But the thing is, the Most High hasn't ordained that to happen. So take advantage of the time that you have right now. Just like how the Most High is saying that, young man, enjoy the time of your youth. This right here before the apocalypse can still technically be seen as the time of your youth. Because what's coming after this, we have to be ready for that. We can't have no excuses. You understand? We have to make sure to endure to the end. So in preparation for that, lock in with the Hebrew, lock in with the classes, lock in with your duties as an officer. You understand? Always make sure to seek the leadership and seek the counsel of the ones that keep us on point. So with that, this is the ISUPK. Started out at 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York. In 1969, we are under Commanding General Yohana. We're here to teach the truth of the Bible for so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native American Indians, their real culture and identity according to the scriptures. With that, shalom.